Thanks very much for inviting me. My name's Chris Hans, and I've been going to Morocco for the last 10 years. MCT is a small charity that we've developed out of the experiences of myself and my Moroccan friends. And our very, very small initial group has turned into quite a wide network now of people who've become interested in the issues that we have discovered along the way. We started off with some small partnership projects working on educational issues with young people in and around the city of Taroudannt in the south of Morocco. But as the last decade has worn on, we've become increasingly aware of very important problems which are starting to affect the south of the country in a way which previously we thought was only present in the big urban centres in the north, in Casablanca, in Tangier, in Marrakesh. More and more children are living, sleeping or working on the street. And this is something which has taken our colleagues a little bit by surprise. They always felt that Taroudannt, Agadir and Esgan were safe places, places where people would live normal family lives, where children would be brought up within the home, where they would be able to go to school and access healthcare and do all the normal things that people do. Things are changing in southern Morocco. The countryside is drying up. Every year now is a drought year. And people are moving from the mountains where before you'd be able to do sustainable agriculture as your way of life, down into the urban centres where things are a little bit more difficult. People don't necessarily have the skills that they need to get on in town. Maybe they speak Amazigh, the language of the mountains, but don't speak Arabic, so they're not able to access the job market. Often people are illiterate, and often people have not made the same administrative arrangements for their lives as people who've grown up in the town have already done. And I'm here today to talk to you about two of the most important problems that we have come across in the last 2.5 years of running our small street children project in the town of Taroudannt. We carried out a relatively large piece of research with children who were living or working on the street in the first 6 months of 2010. And we heard some really shocking stories to me, somebody who'd been visiting the town for a decade. We heard from children who had been forced to engage in prostitution to support themselves or their families, who'd been forced to steal to support themselves and their families, who had slept on the street, who had turned to sniffing glue regularly to erase the experiences that they'd encountered in their time on the street. And we wanted to do something about it. We wanted to make a difference in the lives of these young people. So we set up a project doing social work, casework with the families where the young people had them, working with them at night on the streets to offer them somewhere else to go, to offer them other things to do, other than turning to the people who would exploit them on the streets and in the side alleys of the slum areas of the town. And we've discovered that many of these young people, their way is barred out of that situation. Their families have not legalised their marriages, often these marriages which happened in the mountains, and they've not registered the births of the children. So over 90% of the young people that we interviewed when we were carrying out the research don't have a legal identity. They don't have a birth registration, they don't exist. So they can't go to secondary school, and they can't go to the doctors, and they can't get a job because they don't even exist. Secondly, their parents, as I was discussing before, don't really have the skills that they need to support their children properly. They can't read or write, they can't speak the local language, and they don't have access to the networks that would allow them to gain employment. So what have we done? Well, we've started two very small pilot projects trying to address those two issues. We have started to acquire the identity papers. We've managed to get 25 so far for the children that we have come into contact with. We've discovered the different bureaucratic pathways that you have to handle. Moroccan family law is an extremely complex and very, very fiddly area. But we've worked out how to do it. We've mapped the different ways that you can acquire the identity papers for these young people. We're starting to write the book on it. What we'd like to do is we would like to map everybody who's in this situation in the town of Taroudannt and in the province. And we'd like to ask your help in going out there to secure those identity papers. When we've done that, we can come back, we can say, we've written the book, we know how to do it, now let's go and do it elsewhere. Let's share it with the other organisations across Morocco. The second thing we've set up is a women's project. So a group where women come every week to share their difficulties and their concerns. People who live in the slum areas, people whose kids are exposed to these risks, to say, actually, yes, these are the difficulties we're facing. We don't understand. Can you help us? Can you provide us with ways into employment? Can you help us to get out of the situation that we found ourselves in? The answer so far has been yes, we can, at least for a small number, and 7 of the ladies who've been coming to the project have found their way into the employment through our organisation's connections. They've also suggested that what they'd like to do, those who don't yet have an employment, is to create a catering project. So a cooperative where they'll be able to make their own money in a sustainable way with the startup funds that we're hoping you'll supply us with this evening. So we want to get the children the identity paper so that they can find their own way through life. And we want to support their mothers, who are usually the sole arbiters of what happens in the family, so that they can provide them with the chances that they need. If I come back in a year's time to talk to you, which I really hope that you'll invite us to do, I want to be able to say, yes, we've written the book on ID papers. All the children in the province of Taroudannt have had the opportunity to exist, and we've shared that across Morocco, and thousands of children across Morocco are having that opportunity. And the Women's Project has taken off and is being shared in the same way. Please help us to provide these chances for children whose lives are at risk of being lost in a very fast-changing country. Thank you very much indeed.